But I think if you look at the 4 key value propositions of Barcelona, it's going to be the highest performing x86 processor out there. It's going to completely blow away the existing Clovertown product in every dimension. And so, we've made many public statements. I've discussed this with many of you. So Barcelona is going to be clearly a leading performance product. Secondly, we talked about performance per watt. And in fact, I see that dimension growing much stronger, as I said earlier, and that is you're going to see us continue to put more emphasis in our HE line as a response to our customers coming to us and saying, that piece of paper again, I'm buying on performance per watt. No longer am I buying just based on performance. So you'll continue to see us emphasize our product direction, our product introductions around that HE line for power efficiency. Thirdly, what Steve talked about, virtualization. Right? We feel like the transition to virtualization is not too different than the transition to performance per watt. One of the things that happened as people really started purchasing based on performance per watt, they saw that Opteron was the clear leader. And in fact, if you went into all of the large data centers, what you saw was as people came to a point of realizing they could not continue to scale up the capability of their data center within the cooling and power delivery constraints, they were rolling out their old equipment and rolling in Opteron servers. We expect a similar dynamic to occur as people come to understand the value proposition that Opteron and Barcelona represent for virtualization. And then fourthly, investment protection. That comes in from the perspective of, yes, you can drop Barcelona into an existing socket. That's a tremendous value to our customers because they don't have to completely re-engineer their platforms. It also becomes a big benefit to our end users, like we talked about. They can just go into their existing data centers and, if you will, upgrade in that same footprint a whole new rack of servers that utilize this quad-core technology rather than dual-core technology. The relative performance, dual-core to quad-core, at the same frequency, 100%, that will be consistent as we take those frequencies into the volume frequency. Barcelona loves floating point workloads, right? And it is going to outperform the dual-core processor more significantly on workloads that utilize floating point than those that are purely integer. It used to be, we've got 3 lines of product in terms of, if you think about it, our standard product, Opteron. Then we have the Opteron SE, which is special edition, which is our premium performance product, but it requires a higher power. And then we had our HE line, which is a premium performance per watt product because it delivers performance at this lower power band. And what we've seen is whereas typically or traditionally we maybe had 70% of our volume in the standard product, we're seeing that that's significantly being reduced. And I don't want to get into the specific numbers for HE, but suffice it to say that we've seen the mix for the HE product line more than double over the last 12 months. The majority of that business is tending towards the standard parts and the HE parts because of the issue with power efficiency. And we've had some of our customers come back and tell us that they've done the math, and the premiums that they pay for the HE part, they make up in less than a year, right, in terms of power and cooling and infrastructure costs. So from their perspective, they don't really view it as paying a premium as much as enjoying a cost savings when they look at the whole TCO picture. In fact, we've had a few customers come in that were doing some long-term bids and run their workloads on some of our prototype hardware that you've seen here today. And on all of those cases, they said, my goodness, this is way better than we thought. So we've been very encouraged by some of those, it's 3 data points, I think, so you don't want to read too much into it. They're very encouraging. Interesting, too, that story I told earlier about some of our large end users buying on performance per watt, they're now measuring that power as power at the wall because they've seen that typically our processors take much less power than that TDP for the workloads they're running. And so what you'll see is a continued emphasis in us educating folks that power at the wall, Opteron looks even better than it does from TDP spec. Our competitor was trying to make the case that that it's not manufacturable to put all 4 cores on a single die and that the yields won't support a business, and it's just simply not true. I think it's a convenient argument because they don't have that, right? They have two separate dual core. So I think it's just an argument that's made of their current situation. It's very easy for us to state, and I have many times, and many of y'all have written about it, about our performance advantage over Clovertown because their results are published. So I can look at what their best published scores are, and I know from the work that we're doing internal how we're going to position against that. Their statements about Penryn or their 45 nanometer product, they haven't posted those results, so it's a little bit of a trap, right, for me to say that we're going to be better than that. Well, there's no, what would I even compare it to in the absence of those posted scores? I will say the following, you know, that for we've been able to have a performance advantage with our current dual-core product over their dual-core product, even though their dual-core product is running in 65 and ours is in 90. And I think that they've got a fundamental issue with their system architecture that they now admitted, right, where they're going to have to change it for Nehalem, and that's not going to get addressed with their 45 nanometer Penryn product. So those are some observations, but I'm not going to make any claims until I see the actual results posted for that product.
Clearly, we've now said publicly that we plan to do the 65 to 45 transition in 18 months. And obviously, we're not talking about what we expect for 32 nanometer, but the idea of being able to introduce new technologies in a time frame comparable to our competitor at a fraction of the cost is the model that AMD has been pursuing. And we believe that we will, as we move down the pipe, we'll be getting closer and closer to parity with them, as well as doing it at a fraction of the cost. And frankly, that's an important issue you guys should understand, is look at the cost it takes Intel to introduce new technology versus what it takes AMD to do it. There's a big differential there.